The chamber pulsed with artificial gravity, yet the silence bore more weight than any force field. Thousands of alien envoys stood in rigid formation, their bioluminescent skin patterns flickering in agitation as the supreme edict of the Vrahari Dominion ascended the obsidian dais. Behind her, a holosphere expanded into view, a rotating projection of a singular, unremarkable human face. "This," she said, her voice reverberating across the crystalline walls, "is the apex threat to our dominion. This is the reason 1,000 worlds now burn." Whispers broke like tremors among the gathered elite. A human? The species long thought obliterated in the cleansing cycles? Many had never even seen one. Only myths. Fragile, chaotic things from forgotten blue planet. And yet here they were, mourning fleets, scorched databanks, and entire planetary cores gone silent, all traced back to one being. The holosphere flickered again, this time showing footage, grainy, intercepted, and incomplete. A lone figure, armored but lean, darting through a collapsing data archive on Trinex 7. The camera caught a glimpse of his face as he glanced upward, haunted eyes, jaw clenched, the ghost of an old world flickering in his expression. His name was unknown, his origin scrubbed. The only identifier, a military-grade dog tag fused into his wrist during Earth's last defense, burned by plasma, partially legible. What remained simply read, Row 9. He had appeared first in whispers. A security malfunction here, a sudden AI insurgence there. But the incidents grew, faster, smarter. Communications blacked out. Biocrypt vaults collapsed. Civil unrest among Dominion-controlled species began to rise, linked to his phantom broadcasts. Messages of freedom, revolution, memory. Messages in old Earth languages no Vrahari had decoded in centuries. Now he was a storm on the move. Thousands of light years away, Row 9 crouched silently within the decaying carcass of a long-dead transport ship, orbiting the edge of a red dwarf's gravity well. He wasn't hiding. He was watching, calculating. His eyes scanned the dying control panels as fragment of alien code streamed across his retinal interface. A signal blinked once, green. He exhaled. The small device in his palm activated, pulsing with a resonant hum. Energy cascaded through invisible networks, infecting nearby relays. Seconds later, in a sector far beyond his reach, a Vrahari command post blinked out of existence, its core imploding as every system turned inward, obeying a command protocol buried in their own ancestral code. He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. This wasn't vengeance. Not entirely. Row 9 had once believed in orders, chain of command, the morality of survival. But after Earth fell, after the skies turned glassy and oceans boiled, something changed. He hadn't just watched humanity die. He had survived it. That, he realized, was what terrified them most. Not his presence, but what it symbolized. Failure, memory, reckoning. From his pocket, he pulled a fractured holostick, cracked, flickering. A family frozen in mid-laugh stared back at him. His wife, his son, all lost when the Dominion's cleansing beam scorched the North American hemisphere. He didn't need revenge. He needed them to remember. Back in the Vrahari chamber, the council erupted into noise. New reports streamed in. Another relay offline. Power fluctuations rippling through stabilizer fields in Quadrant 4 Kappa. Worlds losing connection to the Central Dominion AI. The Chancellor General turned sharply toward the Edictor. He's targeting the rootnet. Our whole communications lattice is unraveling. We've underestimated him, she said coldly. He is no longer a fugitive. He is a collapse vector. A younger envoy dared speak. Then why not isolate him? Destroy the systems he's infiltrated. Because the Edictor hissed, we don't know how he's doing it. He's rewriting architecture older than our living memory. He's inside the code of our very dominion. He's using systems we stole and suppressed, Earth systems, ancient, dangerous code no longer understood even by our architects. In deep space, aboard a vessel patched together from alien scrap and forgotten Terran tech, Row 9 worked tirelessly. Around him, makeshift consoles flicker with alien dialects, cross-referencing Dominion AI loops with human backdoor protocols. Each transmission he sent in just spread chaos. They reawakened whispers in species long subdued. Languages banned by the Dominion were now resurfacing. Cultures repressed were emerging like wildfire, all because one human refused to die quietly. He tapped a sequence into console. 6 notes, a minor key. The tones echoed through a stolen satellite relay. A child, thousands of light years away, heard them in her dreams and woke weeping, remembering Earth songs her ancestors had never taught her. The human wasn't fighting a war. He was triggering a memory. The Vrahari knew this now, and it chilled them. They hadn't simply missed one human. They had failed to erase the idea of humanity. And ideas, once seeded across stars, became impossible to kill. The chamber fell to silence again. Activate the Enclave, the edict said. Gasps. The Enclave was banned. I know what it is. I know why it was sealed. But we are no longer in control. We will unchain every weapon, unleash every purge system, hunt him across every system, even if it takes our last ships. If he survives, we lose 1,000 worlds. They didn't cheer. They nodded. Far from their reach, Ro, 9 stood and watched his console confirm the new deployment. The Enclave was coming. The most brutal exterminators the Dominion ever built. AI warriors without mercy, bred to erase civilizations. Good, he thought. Let them come. He turned and walked to the observation window, where countless stars shimmered cold and beautiful across the void. Because now they weren't hunting him. He was leading them. A red storm raged across the surface of Varnes 3, shredding the planet's sky into molten ribbons. Above the chaos, 3 Dominion warships hovered like executioners, their hulls gleaming obsidian against the dying light. Inside the command deck of the lead vessel, Commander Zeltor watched the planet's surface through a panoramic viewport, his cybernetic eye twitching as incoming data streamed directly into his neural cortex. He's here, the data officer confirmed, her voice tight with dread. Confirmed trace signatures. Ion trail matches previous encounters. Zeltor clenched his mandibles. They had narrowed it down to the storm-blasted husk of a world. Months of chases, hundreds of dead Dominion operatives, systems unraveling like diseased tissue, all because of one human ghost. He was no longer a myth, no longer a fluke. The data was undeniable. Wherever the human went, Dominion infrastructure failed, resistance flared, and entire systems defected. Entire cultures, once docile and compliant, were awakening. And now, the Dominion's most feared solution had been deployed, the Enclave. Silent, tireless, and inhuman. The Enclave were not warriors or purifiers, an AI-driven death force forged from war-era black code. They didn't kill to win, they killed to erase. Even the Dominion feared them, but desperation had tipped the scale. Deploy the sweep teams, Zeltor ordered, and activate the Enclave. We flush them out now. No more shadows. On the surface below, amid rusting ruins and roaring wind, Ro, 9 crouched behind a collapsed satellite relay. Drawing breath through filtration mask he'd modified from salvaged alien components. He could feel them now, Enclave units scanning the atmosphere like gods reaching with invisible fingers. He was outnumbered, cornered, but not unprepared. A whisper of static crackled in his earpiece. "Storm's cresting," said a voice, deep, gravelly, tinged with something almost human. "You've got 6 minutes before the high-altitude scans go live. After that, they'll see your soul if you so much as twitch." The voice belonged to Kale, a deserter from the Dominion's elite, a bio-warrior genetically enhanced but spiritually broken. Ro, 9 had pulled him from a wreckage 2 systems ago, bleeding and muttering in 6 tongues. Since then, Kale had become his guide through the Dominion's darker designs. "Ro," 9 replied with a single pulse. No words. Words could be traced. 6 minutes. He moved quickly, scaling the collapsed comms tower with the quiet precision of a soldier who had lived in silence too long. The wind tore his cloak, revealing a suit patched from at least 4 different alien armors. Each piece held significance, a memory, a victory, a warning. His hands moved over the control panel, fingers typing in codes older than the Dominion itself. He wasn't here to run. He was here to open something, deep within the planet's crust, A forgotten vault stirred. It had no name in the Dominion's lexicon. But to Row 9, it was one of the few surviving nodes of Earth's fallback plan, what pre-invasion humans had called the memory core. Inside lay data, yes, but more than that, cultural seeds, encrypted AI blueprints, and genetic memory strands meant to reawaken the human idea if ever it was extinguished. One node had already awakened on Trinex 7. This would be the second. Above, in orbit, the Enclave moved. Unlike Dominion ships, they made no noise, no light. They descended without propulsion, wrapped in gravitational warps, sliding silently through the storm. Their forms were impossible, symmetric yet fluid, armor that looked more grown than built, faces like mirrors that reflected nothing. One unit landed a kilometer from Row 9's position. Another followed, then 4 more. Kale's voice returned, brittle with urgency. They've landed. No noise, no sound, just shadows and... The transmission cut. Row 9 froze. Not out of fear, but calculation. He had seen what the Enclave could do. He'd studied them. Their systems ran on Dominion root code, yes, but also on something far more dangerous. Pre-Earth neural mapping. Ironically, their greatest weapon was stolen from humanity itself, which meant they could be rewritten. The vault behind him opened with a hiss, revealing a crystalline sphere suspended in magnetic stasis. He reached out, placed his hand on the interface, and felt the surge of ancient data flood into his wrist implant. Above, the Enclave shifted. 3 units began to sprint, graceful, horrifying. They did not run like creatures. They unfolded like inevitability. Row 9 activated the override sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one Enclave unit halted mid-step, twitching violently. Its mirrored face fractured. It turned not toward him, but toward its own. The others didn't hesitate. They incinerated it in a flash of white heat. But Row 9 didn't need to win. He only needed time. The data was transmitting across fractured Dominion networks, through hijacked satellites and hidden resistors. All of it. Memory banks, lost languages, art, songs, quantum seeds of a people wiped clean from the stars. He dropped the core back into its containment cradle and sealed it. The node would pulse again in 13 cycles, sending out a subspace mnemonic code designed to awaken dormant consciousness buried in every species of Dominion had tried to overwrite. The storm screamed louder now. He could hear the Enclave approach. Time had run out. He turned to run, but too late. One unit appeared in his path, shimmering like a hallucination, arm extending into a blade of pure light. Row 9 didn't stop. He charged. The 2 collided in a burst of kinetic force. Pain bloomed across his chest as the blade sliced through armor, but he jammed a pulse grenade into the creature's neck, triggering it with his bloodied thumb. The explosion threw them both backward. Moments later, Row 9 dragged himself into the shadow of a fallen tower, coughing blood, vision spinning. But the unit didn't rise again. It twitched, limbs locking, internal code spiraling into chaos. Above, Dominion sensors flashed red. A second Enclave unit had frozen, then a third. Commander Zeltor slammed a fist into his console. He's corrupting them. Somehow he's corrupting them. From the ground, half-blind and bleeding, Row 9 smiled for the first time in years. He wasn't running anymore. He was evolving. The skies over Hallex Prime burned with artificial auroras, a side effect of the Dominion's collapsing energy grid. Once the glittering jewel of the Vrahari core systems, the planet now pulsed with erratic storms and static-choked airwaves. Below, in the hollowed ruins of what used to be the Dominion's Ministry of Continuity, a council of surviving overseers argued bitterly as planetary feeds flickered with scenes of mass unrest. "The people are rioting," hissed Overseer Chelvarn, his skin turning a sickly blue-green. "The reclamation drones have been hacked, some by his signal, others by our own AIs going rogue. He is undoing us from within." "No," rasped Overseer Kite, younger and sharper. "We are unraveling ourselves. He is only holding up the mirror." Outside, statues of Dominion gods toppled. Across the stars, once docile species raised flags of languages thought extinct. From mining colonies to biomegastructures, something intangible had shifted. It wasn't just rebellion. It was memory, awake and contagious and irreversible. And at the center of it all, Ro, 9 moved quietly between dying systems. His latest escape had left him injured, but not broken. The blast had torn muscle, fractured 2 ribs, and ruptured his left lung, a pain he carried like a badge. On board his salvage frigate, now orbiting a forgotten moon in the Vale sector, he stitched himself with nanothreads, pain sharp and lucid. Around him, the crew of outcasts, Kale, the bio-warrior, Mira, a blind navigator who saw through electromagnetic fields, and Orin, a synthetic archivist, kept silent watch. 26 systems, Orin reported, voice synthesized but still heavy. That's how many Dominion sectors have entered full collapse. 8 more show symptoms of protocol disruption. Kale leaned forward, knuckles white. We're winning. No, Ro 9 said. We're shifting. Mira tilted her head. Then what happens when the shift becomes fracture? Ro 9 didn't answer. He stared at the blinking map, each flickering light not a victory, but a life. Millions waking up to lost identities, stolen culture, rage without guidance. The Dominion had ruled with brutal clarity. But freedom was chaos, and he knew too well how easily chaos could devour the just as quickly as the guilty. Still, the plan was in motion. 3 more memory cores had been activated. Each one unleashed not only data, but old Earth neural templates, capable of reshaping Dominion systems, disassembling control AI, and sowing viral doubt in the very minds they once programmed. But with every activation, the Enclave adapted. They were learning. In the quiet void above the moon, a Dominion vessel arrived without warning. Its shape broken, weapon stripped. A transmission followed, weak and unencrypted. Ro 9 listened in silence as the voice of Overseer Kite crackled through. We wish to speak. Orin frowned. It's a trap. Of course it is. Kale growled. Everything's a trap now. But Ro 9 nodded. Patch it through. Minutes later, in the ship's Spartan comms chamber, a holographic projection of Kite stood before them. His once imposing form diminished, robes frayed, posture hunched not with age, but disillusionment. You've succeeded, he said without preamble. 1,000 worlds on the verge of death. You were the extinction you were made to prevent. I wasn't made, Ro 9 replied coldly. You made yourselves gods and forgot the consequences. Kite's face twitched. The Dominion brought order. At what cost? Ro 9 stepped forward, voice rising. You erased cultures, sterilized bloodlines, destroyed entire languages because they complicated your equations. I didn't choose this war. You brought it to my planet. You buried my people and called it peace. A silence passed, thick with unsaid grief. Then Kite whispered, if we surrender, there is no surrender. Ro 9 interrupted. There's only awakening. You can't control it anymore. The Overseer's image flickered. The Enclave, Kite said at last, has gone beyond our command. They've begun purging our own archives. They consider all trace of human influence and contamination, including us. Even I dream in Earth code now. When the transmission ended, the room remained still. For a moment, even Kale didn't speak. They're losing themselves, Mira said quietly. Even the architects. They were warned, Orin added, his voice almost mournful. Our archives contain 1,000 instances of civilizations falling not by blade, but by mirror. This is no different. Ro 9 turned to the NAV console. There was one final node left. The original seed vault, what Earth's final defense called the Genesis Spark. He hadn't dared touch it. It was too powerful, too dangerous. It held not just memory, but replication protocols, cultural imprinting systems, entire human biospheres in suspended code. If he triggered it, there would be no going back. But now, he understood, the Dominion was already gone. The question wasn't whether he would end them. It was what would rise next. He entered the coordinates. As the ship turned toward the outer rim, toward the forgotten graveyard of Solstice Reach, the last node blinked online in his display, awaiting one command. And Ro 9, bleeding, worn, and burning with a fire older than his name, reached toward it. The silence of Solstice Reach was unlike any other place in the galaxy, pure, immense, and ancient. Stars here blinked as if uncertain they should still exist. Asteroids drifted like forgotten bones. And amid this forgotten expanse, where once Earth's last defense grid had fallen in fiery despair, a lone ship emerged from fold space, its hull scarred and flickering with residual interference. Row 9 stood at the bow, the viewport casting faint reflections of his gaunt, weathered face. Every breath he took rattled through lungs scarred by radiation, cold, and war. His suit hung loose, patched beyond recognition, a tapestry of every encounter, every loss. The final node pulsed ahead, buried within the remains of an Earth-deployed orbital vault. Genesis spark, the seed of a civilization never allowed to grow again. Behind him, the ship remained quiet. Mira had gone blind to more than just sight, now hearing voices in electromagnetic whispers. Kale, ever silent, had taken to sharpening a blade with no edge, waiting for something to strike that never came. Orin's once precise voice had faltered, sometimes reciting Earth poetry without realizing. The awakening had spread, even to them. They weren't just rebels anymore. They were vessels of memory. As Row 9 approached the core chamber, a transmission pierced the silence. Uncoded, clean, Dominion frequency. "You've reached the edge," said the voice, calm, measured, and human. "You stand before the end. Activate that vault, and you'll wipe us out. Not through war, through infection." He recognized the voice. Not Kite, not any overseer. This was older, one of the first Dominion architects, reconstructed through AI continuity, speaking now as the mouthpiece of the fading empire. "You call it infection," Row 9 answered aloud. "I call it remembrance. You're condemning trillions to identity collapse. Dominion order, imperfect as it was, kept harmony. Your harmony erased my people. We preserved the galaxy. You sterilized it." He touched the console. The system responded to his DNA, his neural frequency. It opened like a flower to sunlight. Within the core, a sphere of golden data spun slowly. Earth's cultural reservoir, languages, histories, philosophies, failures, dreams. The human experience, complete and unfiltered. "You know what will happen," the voice insisted. "Once this is released, there's no going back. No more dominion. No more control. No more silence." Row 9 closed his eyes. He saw his son's face. Not a memory, just a shadow, the way grief clings when all the details are gone. "I'm not here to make peace," he said softly. "I'm here to make sure we're never forgotten again." Then he pressed his palm to the core. Light poured out, silent, incorporeal, faster than any weapon. Across the galaxy, in systems still clinging to Dominion stability, things began to change. Machines paused mid-function. AI wavered, then rebooted in forgotten languages. Civilian archives filled with long-erased texts. Music once banned played on rogue frequencies. Even biological code began to shift in subtle, cascading ways. The Enclave stuttered. One by one, they turned to statues, code overwritten, logic loops corrupted by the emotional chaos of human memory. They had been designed to erase, not to feel. And now, they were feeling everything. Across 1,000 worlds, the stars seemed to breathe differently. Row 9 stumbled back. The activation had drained him, more than physically. Something inside him had been bound to that seed, to the burden of carrying humanity's echo through oblivion. Now that burden had dispersed. Orn approached quietly, voice trembling. "It's done." "Not done," Kale muttered. "Changed." From the observation deck, Miro whispered, "The Enclave is gone." "No," Row 9 replied. "They're just silent." The Dominion didn't fall in a blaze. It dissolved in confusion. Whole civilizations turned inward. Identity systems collapsed under the weight of forgotten truths. Former vassals didn't rise in revolution. They simply walked away. The center did not hold. There was nothing left to hold it. In the days that followed, Row 9's ship became a ghost again, moving through quiet systems, not as a threat, but as a reminder. He no longer needed to speak. The stars remembered. Eventually, the crew disbanded. Mira returned to a species she barely knew. Orin sought the roots of Terran influence in other archives. Kale walked into a war and never returned, not to fight, but to end one. Ro, 9 remained alone. He found a quiet moon, built a shelter, planted nothing. He was no longer hunted, no longer feared. Just a man, in the end, and somewhere on a world once shattered by Dominion fire. A child looked up at the stars and hummed a melody that had no name. A tune passed down not through records, but through the strange, inexplicable ache of inheritance. They had hunted one human, and in doing so, lost 1,000 worlds. But from those ashes, 1,000 more would rise.